Jay Navis leaned on the polished counter of Nebula's Edge, the busiest bar in the spaceport, and arguably the most chaotic gathering place in Sector 17. The patrons were a wild assortment of alien species, some of whom spoke through translator implants, while others communicated with clicks, blinks, or bioluminescent pulses. Jay had long since given up on trying to understand them. His job wasn't to figure them out, it was to serve drinks, smile when appropriate, and duck when fights broke out. Tonight, however, the energy felt particularly unusual. He couldn't quite place it, but something about the air felt charged. Maybe it was the row of Elogian miners arguing over a game of holographic dice, or the insectoid ambassador attempting to negotiate a treaty while sipping his 7th luminous slush. Or maybe, just maybe, it had something to do with the tall, purple-skinned woman who had just walked into the bar. Jay froze, mid-polish, his towel suspended in mid-air. She was stunning. Her skin, a shimmering shade of purple, reflected the faint neon glow of the bar's hollow signs. She wore a metallic suit that looked both ceremonial and functional, with glowing lines running across its surface like veins of liquid silver. She approached the bar with purposeful strides. When she reached him, she leaned forward, her voice low and melodic. "Can you make this drink for me?" With one graceful motion, she tapped her suit, which projected a glowing hologram of a complex drink recipe. Jay whistled low. "Fancy. All right, let me see what I can do." As he worked, Jay kept sneaking glances at her. When he handed her the finished drink, a spark concoction that shifted colors as it fizzed, she took a sip and nodded approvingly. Feeling emboldened, Jay grinned and grabbed his cocktail shaker, spinning it between his fingers. "Now this is the real secret to the trade. Without it, I'm just a guy pouring juice into a glass." He tossed it in the air, catching it deftly. "Here, consider it a token of my bartending skills." He extended the shaker toward her in a mock bow, a half-joke to lighten the tension. But as soon as she touched it, her eyes widened. The glowing lines on her suit flared to life, pulsing rapidly like a heartbeat. She gasped, staring at him in shock. Then she said, "Your craftsmanship is evident, even in something as common as this." "So you propose to me?" Jay froze. "Wait, what? You offer a token of bond, a handmade item." "It's a marriage custom." Her voice was serious, her expression deadly calm. "No, no, no, no!" Jay waved his hands frantically. "That's not what this is. Just a cocktail shaker." "It's not." "Wait, did you say marriage?" Before he could explain further, a loud hum filled the bar as a holographic crest projected from her suit. It hovered in the air above them, a swirling sigil of silver and gold. The room went silent. Every patron turned to stare at them, jaws dropping in unison. "What is that?" Jay asked, staring at the crest. "The mark of union," the woman said simply. "You are now to be my mate." Jay's mouth fell open, but before he could protest, the doors of the bar slammed open, and a group of heavily armed aliens stormed in. At the front of the pack was a hulking, purple-skinned warrior with a cybernetic arm and a scowl that could curdle milk. "GY!" the warrior barked, his voice like gravel. "You dare defy me? Who is this?" This human, GY, because that was apparently her name, turned to face him, her posture straight and unyielding. "Torvak, you are no longer my concern. I have chosen my mate." "Chosen your what?" Jay stammered. "No, you haven't. This is a mistake. I'm not." Torvak growled, his cybernetic arm whirring menacingly. "You will release her, human, or I will crush you where you stand." "Hand!" Jay threw up his hands. "Just great! I don't even know what's happening anymore." Before Torvak could attack, GY stepped forward. Her suit shifted, the glowing lines rearranging themselves into intricate patterns. A faint hum filled the air as the suit morphed, plating itself into a sleek combat mode with sharp edges and shimmering shields. In a blur of motion, she unsheathed an energy blade from her forearm. "You will not touch him," she said, her voice cold and commanding. Torvak roared, and chaos erupted. The bar exploded into action, patrons scattering, tables flipping, and drinks shattering as GY and Torvak clashed. Jay ducked behind the counter, narrowly avoiding a stray plasma bolt. "Why is this happening to me?" he muttered, peeking out just in time to see GY deliver a swift kick that sent Torvak crashing into a holographic jukebox. "Come!" GY shouted, grabbing Jay's wrist. Before he could protest, she dragged him toward the back exit. Behind them, Torvak was already getting back to his feet, his cybernetic arms sparking ominously. They burst out into the neon-lit streets of the spaceport, where GY yanked him onto a waiting grav cycle. The sleek vehicle purred as it hovered above the ground. "Hold on, mate," GY said, as she activated the controls. "I'm not your—" Jay began, but the grav cycle shot forward, the wind ripping the words from his mouth as they sped through the labyrinthine streets. Jay clung to GY for dear life. Behind them, Torvak's warship loomed, its weapon systems powering up. The grav cycle shot through the industrial district, its engines whirring as GY skillfully weaved it through tight alleys and over cargo containers. Jay clung to her, doing his best not to scream as they narrowly avoided crashing into anything in their path. The sky above them was filled with the ominous hum of Torvak's warship still pursuing them. "Seriously, GY!" Jay yelled, the wind howling in his ears. "I didn't ask for any of this. I don't even know you." "You are to be my mate," she said, her voice firm, cutting through the noise. "Whether you know me or not." "What?" Jay protested. Greeny's expression hardened. "The bond has been witnessed by both Gim and humans. It is a permanent union, Jay. You are legally bound to me." "Legally?" Jay gaped. "I thought it was just some kind of weird misunderstanding. You seriously want me to marry you?" "Not want. You are to be my mate now," she replied, her eyes flashing a dangerous light. "If you do not honor the bond, by Gim law, you will face severe consequences for dishonoring our traditions." Jay's stomach churned. "Consequences for a cocktail shaker?" "Yes, Jay. A handmade object of importance," she said calmly, keeping her focus on the road ahead. "You crafted it and presented it to me, and that is all it takes for a bond to be established." Jay's heart sank. "But I didn't." "I know what you did, but the law does not care about your intentions. You now have 2 Gim solar cycles to consummate our bond." Jay blinked. "Wait, what? Consummate? Are you—" "GY?" My voice didn't falter. "Yes, you must accept me as your mate. If you refuse, I will return to my people, and Torvak will take you as his prisoner. I doubt you can escape from him." Jay swallowed hard. "What? Who is he?" Grady's eyes flickered to him for a split second before turning back to the grav cycle controls. "He stands to gain politically by claiming me as his." That's. She was a blur of motion as she swerved around an incoming transport ship, narrowly avoiding a collision. Jay rubbed his temples. "And what happens if I just don't go along with this?" "If you refuse to consummate the bond within 2 Gim solar cycles, your life will be forfeit," GY said flatly. "Not just for dishonoring me, but for dishonoring our people. We do not take marriage lightly." Jay felt a sinking feeling in his chest as the full weight of her words hit him. "This is insane," he muttered, shaking his head. "I didn't even know I was proposing to you. I just thought I was impressing you with a drink shaker." "You impressed me all right," she said dryly, "but not in the way you expected. The craftsmanship was great, though." As they sped toward the outskirts of the spaceport, Jay could hear the booming sound of Torvak's warship closing in. It was relentless, and Grady's evasive maneuvers were becoming more frantic. Jay's heart raced faster than the grav cycle. He was now a target, not just of Torvak, but of an entire alien society that viewed him as her mate. And that status had serious consequences. He realized with growing dread that there was no escaping it. Suddenly, a flash of light streaked across the sky. Torvak's warship had deployed smaller pursuit ships, and one of them was rapidly gaining on them. GY swerved again, expertly dodging laser fire as they sped through a gap between 2 towering structures. Jay gripped the edge of the seat. "GY, we need a plan. This can't just be about running away forever. We can't live like this." She didn't answer at first, her face tense. Then she spoke, her voice calmer but filled with determination. "We're going to Gim space. The only way out of this is for you to formally accept me as your mate in front of my people." Jay's head swam with the madness of it all. "You're asking me to go to your planet, play along with this insane tradition, and what? Hope it all gets fixed? And if I refuse, I will be hunted down." Gretamoy shot him a look that was half serious, half amused. "Better prepare yourself, human." He stared at her, his mind racing. "So, no pressure, huh?" "None at all," she said, turning back to the controls. A strange mixture of fear and exhilaration washed over him here. He was way out of his depth here, but one thing was clear. His life had just taken a very unexpected and very dangerous turn. The warship above them fired once more, a bright streak of energy flashing past their ship. With a sly smile, GY opened the throttle, and the grav cycle shot forward, quickly lifting off the ground. She expertly piloted it into the belly of her ship, where they soared into the void of space, leaving the chaos behind. The stars stretched into long, glowing streaks as Grinny's vessel sped through hyperspace, carrying them farther from Torvak's warship and closer to Gimspace. The cabin was dimly lit, the hum of the ship's systems a soothing constant. Jay leaned back in his chair, finally allowing himself a moment to breathe after the chaos of their escape. GY sat across from him, her purple skin glowing faintly under the cabin lights. She'd been quiet since they left the warship behind, her usual confidence replaced with a contemplative air. It had probably been between 5 and 6 hours. Finally, she broke the silence. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. Jay opened one eye suspiciously. "What now?" "This is about my father. He's the ruler of our house, one of the most powerful on Gim. To him, I'm nothing more than a pawn. My entire life has been about pleasing him, about being used in his political games." Jay sat up, intrigued despite himself. "That's why you ran off to some backwater planet to bartend?" She nodded, her gaze distant. "I wanted freedom, a chance to be my own person, but now, thanks to this bond, I'm heading right back to his court. If we go through with this, I'll be stuck under his control again, and you'll be caught in the middle of it." Jay frowned. "That's rough, but hey, at least you had something to run from." "I've been drifting through life with nothing and no one. I've spent years bouncing around the galaxy, watching other people do important things while I mix their drinks and try not to feel like a failure." Grithy's eyes softened. "You don't seem like a failure to me," Jay snorted. "Thanks, but that doesn't really change the fact that I'm just some guy who accidentally proposed to an alien princess because I was trying to impress her with a drink shaker." They shared a quiet laugh, the tension between them easing for a moment, but then Gricky's expression turned serious again. "There might be a way out of this," she said, lowering her voice as if the ship itself were listening. Jay blinked. "What do you mean?" "When you were asleep earlier, I asked the ship's AI to analyze Gimlaw. I wanted to see if there was some loophole we could exploit." She hesitated, then continued. "And there is, too, actually." "Go on," Jay said wearily. GY leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "The first loophole is unconventional. By Gimlaw, a bond like ours can be invalidated if the couple engages in physical intimacy before marriage. It's considered a dishonorable act that disqualifies the bond." Jay blinked, his cheeks flushing. "Wait, are you saying?" "I'm saying if we—" She trailed off, her own cheeks darkening to a deep violet. "If we share a moment before we land on Gim, the bond could be voided." Jay cleared his throat, trying to sound calm. "And, the second option?" "If I publicly propose marriage to someone of another species using their customs, it creates a paradox in Gimlaw. The original bond would collapse under the weight of the contradiction." Jay rubbed his temples. "So our options are break the bond by, getting close, or stage a fake proposal to me when we land?" GY nodded. "To be safe, we could do both." Jay leaned back, letting out a nervous laugh. "You're really good at making this all sound logical." "I am nothing if not efficient," GY said with a smirk, though her violet cheeks betrayed her embarrassment. Jay shook his head, a rueful smile tugging at his lips. "Well, GY, I've done a lot of foolish things in my life, but this might just top the list." GY rose from her seat, stepping closer to him. The faint glow of her skin seemed to pulse with nervous energy. "I need to know, Jay, are you with me on this?" He met her gaze, searching her face for any hint of doubt, but all he saw was determination and maybe something more. Finally, he stood, the humor fading from his expression. "Yeah," he said softly, "I'm with you." The ship's cabin was bathed in warm, dim light as the two of them moved together, their earlier tension giving way to a tentative intimacy after. As promised, the ship's AI recorded everything, storing the data securely for their later presentation to the Gim Court. The experience was awkward, tender, and surprisingly genuine, a far cry from the transactional affair Jay had expected. Afterward, they sat together in silence, the weight of what they'd done hanging in the air. Jay finally broke the silence with a sheepish grin. "Well, if this doesn't work, At least I can say I had the weirdest day of my life. GY laughed, her voice light for the first time in what felt like hours. We're not done yet, Jay. There's still the matter of the fake proposal. When they landed on Gim, the contrast between the ship's cramped quarters and the sprawling grandeur of the royal court was staggering. The towering palace shimmered with a metallic sheen, its spires reaching into the sky. The Gim royal courtroom was a masterpiece of extravagance, an open space with an artificial sky above, floating banners, and rows of seats packed with nobles in flowing robes. Jay stood beside GY, feeling like an ant under a magnifying glass. Her father sat on a towering throne at the far end, his expression as cold and imposing as his hologram. The High Magistrate, a figure swathed in ceremonial gold, presided over the proceedings. GY, her father boomed, explain this absurdity. Father, she began, her voice steady, I am here to resolve the bond. Resolve? The magistrate interjected. You mean to marry, as tradition dictates. Not exactly, she said, smirking slightly. GY turned to Jay, her voice loud and clear. Jay, put a ring on it, human? Jay blinked. Wait, that's how you're doing this? Just do it, she hissed, thrusting a simple silver band into his hands. With a theatrical sigh, Jay dropped to one knee. GY, will you marry me? The court erupted into shocked murmurs, their alien faces contorting in confusion. GY smirked, clearly savoring their reactions. Yes, Jay, I accept your human proposal. The ship's AI transmitted the recorded evidence of their earlier act to the court's central database. The courtroom exploded into chaos, nobles shouting and arguing. The magistrate banged his staff for order, his face red with frustration. Enough! By Gim law, this bond is nullified. Jay exhaled in relief. So we're free? Yes, the magistrate grumbled, clearly annoyed. Outside the courtroom, Jay turned to GY. So what now? She smirked, slipping the ring back onto her finger. Maybe we make this real. No loopholes this time. For the first time in a long time, Jay didn't feel aimless, being fearless. He felt found. GY set a course back towards Sector 17. It was a place Jay knew all too well. The spaceport, the chaos, the noise. But now it felt different. Stiff. As the ship coasted back into familiar space, Jay glanced over at GY. She wasn't smiling, but there was something new in her eyes. A quiet understanding. Whatever came next, they would face it together.